Welcome to Accelerating Education, a podcast for everyone involved in educating today's kids, especially those who are interested in optimizing educational outcomes. Here's our host, Richard Capone.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Accelerating Education. My name is Richard Capone, and I'm the host. And I'm real excited today because we have with us here Richard Verlander, who's a founding board member of the Goochland Pet Lovers, which is a animal shelter and more in Richmond, Virginia. So, Richard, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
Great. So you have a real interesting story about what you guys are doing, and it ties into behavior, ties into kindness, which is something we really need today. But why don't you give us a little background about yourself and how you got into this? Because you're not a teacher, but you now are involved in schools and animals and all this sort of great things. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. So I add this to a fairly long list of things I never thought I'd be doing. Actually, one of my favorite things in life is if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plan, because this is not something that we ever imagined ourselves doing. But so the kind of Reader's Digest version for the little bit of background is my wife Kathy and I started volunteering at our animal shelter as dog walkers a few years back. And that shelter was pretty dilapidated. And that's actually an understatement. It was out of compliance and just really in bad shape. But nonetheless, we have a passion for animals. We've always had dogs, and we loved being volunteer dog walkers. And out of that grew sort of an invitation out of a local 5013C that had just been formed, which was Goochland Pet Lovers, to actually get on their board and help with a capital campaign to actually partner with the county in what turned out to be a pretty unique private-public partnership, where we actually partnered with the Goochland County to help raise funds to build a new animal shelter. So initial days of Goochland Pet Lovers was very much a bricks and mortar campaign. We had tremendous support from the community. We raised $1.5 million in less than 2 years, and put that towards actually creating an adoption wing. The company had the county had the architectural review and everything drawn up and approved for the shelter. But what we were able to do was through our donors was able to build an adoption wing onto the shelter. So it has turned out to be, it is lovely. We've literally gone from a ramshackle 2-bedroom ranch / animal shelter into probably one of the nicest facilities, if not the nicest in the state.
I saw the pictures showing the evolution of the timeline, which is quite impressive.
Yeah.
And quite a history, and that's great for the community, right? I'm sure it's just such a nice thing to have.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a great journey. And so Kathy and I had actually previously written a book on another subject, and we always knew we wanted to write a children's book. But as we like to tell the kids, as my wife tells the kids at school, the light bulb has to go off in your head. Like, what are we going to write about? So it came to us that, so what are you passionate about? What do you love? And we love baseball. Our boys both play baseball. And we love kids, and we love dogs and cats. So we actually made up a story about the dogs and cats at the animal shelter sneak out and go play a secret game of baseball together at night. It's called The Shelter Gang and Their Secret Adventure. And so we put the book together and started out basically just going and doing volunteer reading, and started with our local school system. And really, it actually morphed into quite a big deal for us. We visited almost all the local area schools, the suburban counties, literally probably hundreds of schools over a couple of years. And just going in and partnering with the schools and reading to the kids and telling them this story about the shelter gang. And it really, it's sort of funny. My publisher tells me, another one of these little sayings on a professional level is that your readers will tell you what your book's about. So it turns out it was a whole lot more than just dogs and cats and playing baseball. It actually ends up being all about diversity and perseverance and working together as a team. And we strive to point out all the differences all the different animals bring to the team, how they're all different, but it's really because of their difference that they make such a good team. So this message really started to resonate. And just fast forwarding a little bit, with that experience sort of uh, in our rear view, we really came up with the idea to try to maybe take that to another level and create a program, which by this point, our 5013C has now progressed from a bricks and mortar to more of a program oriented 5013C. So now instead of building a shelter, we're supporting the shelter and we're doing outreach programs to underserved community. We have a medical fund that allows us to basically provide services that a typical shelter could not provide. So hence was born the Education Committee, which I was asked to and currently chair, and quickly sort of did some brainstorming and research and came up with this little program called Teaching Kindness. And we used some other models out there and other experiences, but basically it's a 6-week program, and each one centers around some aspect of animal welfare. And just like our little book, it's about a lot more than that. It's about empathy and kindness and teaching children, to using animal welfare as a tool, as we find out is, a lot of kids really respond well to. So it's been
Yeah,
a wonderful experience so far.
and that's where I heard the Teaching Kindness initiative. And what I thought is really great for our listeners and our customers is that it's really interesting because people don't always think about behavior or kindness. It has to be taught, right? Just like in academic interventions, if somebody is behind and struggling, you look at it, you have a framework, you have standards, and you teach them academics. But I think what you're doing is part of kindness is a part of behavior, right? It's respect for each other, it's empathy. And what I really thought was interesting about this too is that and I want to tell people, you have a very structured program, right?
Yes.
And it means it can be repeatable because I know in my own community, we have an animal shelter. And I think
Yeah.
this is something that can be replicated for other people who say, hey, because you made the connection to the schools now, right? And I remember you told
Yes.
me that you now are the standard curriculum for third. So maybe tell us a little bit about
Yes.
that too.
Sure. Yeah. So that is, sort of part of the process. We kind of just started out. We visited our local YMCA. We had some organizations, partner organizations have been a huge part of what we do. And some of those organizations, like for seeing eye dogs or the police departments, canines, all these, we sort of reflected the message with our program, which was just like people, animals have all different things that they're good at. And this is what we tell the kids in the lesson. Like, this dog is he's from a herder. He's a herder, so he has a job. And this one over here is a retriever. And so we partner with these organizations. We brought dogs and animal handlers and groups into our local YMCA. And so again, the wheels start turning, and we thought, well, let's go meet with school administrators. And we did. We sat down and met with the school administrator and pretty much said to them, look, we want to build a partnership within the schools, and it's really about community building. And it's really about us reaching out to you, not to say we need to have something else we'd like for you to do, but rather our organization has this program. How can we help you do what you're already doing? And so that, really resonated. And we're a small community. Everybody knows each other.
Mhm.
And, kids play Little League together and things. Uh, so they said, great. So we started something of a pilot program and kind of just developed as we went along. But yeah, that was a very big part of it. And so to your point, it's actually a goal of ours to be able to package this in a way that not only is it sustainable, because that's important too. When you sit down and talk with a school administrator, they're like, okay, this sounds great, but how long is it going to be around? once you guys move along, like, or the 501(c), like, is this because we already had fire safety for the fourth graders. We have second grade has learned to swim. We had the DARE program for keeping kids off drugs. The third graders didn't have anything. So we saw an opportunity, and they wanted to know, well, the fire department's not going away. And, the learn to swim is going, but how about you guys? So we, assured them that we're here for the long haul, but also viewed that as a challenge, right? Because our program has to be sustainable and teachable. So we, in conjunction with the book itself, put together an instructor's guide and then you're right, we've got a couple of great teachers that we reached out to develop our team, but we also have community members that are not teachers, but just have a abiding passion. Our passion is what connects us all together for animals and kids. And it's really worked well because it just brings something a little different, when kids see that, they're maybe their dentist or a community doc, somebody from the community that's up there. It just kind of rings a little differently with them, and it's so touching, and we get more out of it than I can even begin to tell you. It's like
Great.
when you see a teacher or a kid in the store, and they recognize, hey, Mr. Goochland Pet Lovers, it's like, oh my gosh.
So, Richard, you also mentioned that you've been working with some different special needs programs. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because obviously, that's a really important aspect, I think, of what you've been doing.
Oh yeah, and it's turned out to be so meaningful for us. And actually, it was sort of happenstance the way it came about. This special needs teacher at the high school, actually. Now, our program's with the elementary schools, but she got wind of the idea that, or the that we were doing these shelter visits with the elementary school kids as part of the overall program, and reached out to us and asked us, "Hey, could you maybe arrange a shelter visit for these kids?" And so we were, of course, all about, oh, yeah, we'd love to. And I had a conversation with her and we talked. And myself and one of our board members met with her and said, well, let us tell you about our third grade program. I don't know if it's appropriate for these kids at this level, but
And they were older, right? This is high
yeah,
school. Yeah.
yeah, and it's a pretty broad range of kids, in terms of age and developmental challenges. And so again, we're not experts in this field. We were a little intimidated. Actually, we didn't know what we were going to get into, but we offered, and she said, "Please do the program for us." So we took the teaching kindness program, to the high school and did the same 6 weeks program. And these kids were wonderful. Actually, after a couple of weeks, they really, really warmed up and opened up to us and just actually won our hearts over. We keep coming out just like shaking our heads like, man, this is such a special opportunity. And our board chair actually at the time ran into one of the moms of one of the students at a local grocery store. And the mom told her that this is all her child can talk about. She said, they don't really get to do a whole lot. And for most of them, their life is home and school. So this thing has really just really, really got us excited. And so, I mean, we hear this. It's like, man, it's like,
You're
uh,
making another huge impact, right? And it's
yeah.
another group, and
And
it's an at-risk group of students,
yeah.
which we need to share.
And it's another area. It's another
Mhm.
area that we feel like there's just such tremendous opportunity for growth with our program. And so much of it continues to evolve. Frankly, we're just sometimes we feel like we're just along for the ride because the program is just taking off, and we're like, man, we've got something really special here, as I said before, and like we're just so thrilled with the prospects and. Looking forward and wondering and hoping where we might be a year from now, 5 years from now, and going into the future. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I've got to tell you that when we got contact from the special needs teacher at the high school, our program culminates. As a matter of fact, just today, We actually had a shelter visit. So the animal shelter visit is like the culmination, the
Mhm.
big grand finale of the program itself. So we visit the school for 6 weeks, and then all the kids came today and toured the shelter, and it kind of ties everything together. Like, we talk about lesson 2 is from our book. It's about teamwork. So we really use the opportunity to kind of segue like today, because the shelter staff and the animal control officers and the office work and the veterinarians, they're all there. And some of them are actually real characters from our book, by the way. I forgot to mention that. We
Oh,
actually
that's great.
based it on real people, real places, and real dogs and cats.
So
And
let me back up a little bit. So you have this curriculum, so that you come into the school and you're starting to go through it. You meet with the third grade classes, you cycle through, but also it's also interactive, right? So the kids are participating and sort of reinforcing, talking about what it means to be good, So maybe
yes,
take us a little through that, and then you said the culmination, because I think this is really fascinating. Because, like, just real quickly, ironically or not ironically, coincidentally, we had a webinar today on behavior, because we have a whole behavior monitoring system. And what we always say is people don't realize, but behavior has to be, like I said, you need to teach it. You need to sort of explain, what does it mean to be, good in the classroom, in the cafeteria, what does it mean to be patient, right? And so maybe take us through a little bit about how that curriculum goes through.
yeah. So yeah, using animal welfare and behavior with animals, we realized pretty quickly that that translates to kids and to humans. And so things like kindness and empathy and uh, like probably one of my favorite lessons is our lesson 3, which is called Kind versus Cruel. And we actually will show all the kids. We have some old school posters, so we're not real high tech, but we also have, like up on the video in the class. And in this case, we meet in the library, and all the third graders come together. And so we show them examples of, like, there's a kid throwing a rock at a dog, and we'll like, okay, is that kind or cruel? And of course, they're, oh, that's cruel. And we go through a series of behaviors with animals, or actually, one's even just a shoe stepping on a beetle bug. And
Hmm.
like, is that kind of cruel? So we go through this whole exercise, and then we sort of segue into bullying.
Hmm.
And that's a relatively recent thing for us. This year we met with the administrators before the year and said, we know bullying's an issue in our schools and pretty much every school. And we think we have a vehicle to address this within our, curriculum, but we don't want to, as you say, we're not experts, right? So we don't want to pretend to be, but we feel like this message can resonate with kids as far as bullying, this kind versus cruel lesson. So we do talk about that a little and say that, this kind of behavior will, what about if someone in your class is saying bad things about somebody, or somebody's pushing somebody around, and what do you do? Because if you see behavior with an animal, you tell your mom and dad, or you tell your teacher. Well, same thing with this.
Yeah, that's
So we're really excited about that aspect of it, and quite intrigued by some of the programs and stuff that are out there.
So then it culminates in the visit, and that must be really excited, because everyone loves dogs and puppies.
Yeah.
So I'm sure
So
they come to
so
the shelter, right?
So here's what I was asked a while back to report to the county board of supervisors and school board meeting about our program, and I, thinking about, okay, well, here I am again, like, what am I doing here? But I talked about. You said, it's such divided times, in our society and in our country, unfortunately, right now. But the one thing I've noticed is that when it comes to what we're talking about, which is dogs and cats and kids, it's so unifying. And we can have the most diverse, politically opposed group in the world. Bring a puppy in the room and see what happens. It has a magical effect on I'd say bringing out the best in people. So, that's the effect that it has. And yeah, the shelter tour is the culmination of the whole like program, and it really just ties everything together. We try to build from one lesson to another. So just today in the shelter, um, you know, the story resonates beyond our community, but it's even more special in our community because, like our book, The Shelter Gang, as I said, is really based on that shelter. And there's actually a real ball field right down the street where the dogs go play baseball. So, anyway, but we talk about teamwork a
Hmm.
lot in that story. And then so today we have the opportunity, hey kids, because the shelter staff is opening up and telling the kids about what all they do. Well, these people, they're volunteers and they clean the cages, and I'm administrator. I answer the phone, and back there we got veterinarians working on, dogs. And so, hey kids, remember that word teamwork, right?
Hmm.
So we have so many opportunities to segue, whether it's talking about a dog chasing a cat, how it relates to bullying, or whether it's, the community, volunteering. We talk about like this makes you feel good in your heart. You don't get paid money. And, it's just like we've got a great thing and we don't even hardly know what to do with
Well, that's
it.
great. That's why
Because,
we want to get the word out there. And, it's Goochland, petlovers.com, Goochland, Pet Lovers. So and also what I will do is I'll make sure also that we get some of your curriculum or the links to it, and we'll link it on the podcast or in the notes, because I think what you guys have done is amazing, and it can be replicated, right? Because really, literally, I think so many communities have great animal shelters. The one thing that's really unifying is there's a lot of people who love animals, right? And I know
right.
in my community,
Yep.
there's a great shelter that is so empathetic, and we got a recently, Luna, our rescue dog. We've had her for 6 months, and it's been great. They're so helpful when we picked her up, and all that stuff. So I think that this is a natural progression. So we will share that information, and hopefully people could
That's great.
leverage what you've done and expand it to more areas of the United States.
That's our dream. And do you know that also you made me think about like the makeup of our group? Many of us on that are on the board of Goochland Pet Lovers, and then of course also on our committee with the schools, their education committee. Uh, we actually are people that volunteer at the shelter. And when
Hmm.
you go to look at volunteers at the shelter, like just today, the retired sheriff there is, our county sheriff retired, and he's walking dogs at the shelter. So the wheels start turning, and like, wonder if he'd like to be on our board because we're always looking for board members, right? So
Hmm.
this is kind of the magic of the whole thing, and
Yeah.
this is, like one of the teachers that I met through basically dog walking, has a lot of experience as a school teacher, and just struck up a conversation one day and like, oh well, hey, what do you think about maybe checking out our education committee because we're looking for folks, and you were a teacher, and next thing you know, she's in gung ho, and also like now on our executive board. so,
Yeah.
so we have fertile ground, I guess, is what I'm saying, for actually
Yeah.
finding people that share the same passion.
Well, that's great. Well, you know what? I think we're almost out of time, but thank you so much. Your story is wonderful, and thank you for your service and helping your community, and also for pulling this together. I think it's going to help other people in the country, and as you said, we definitely need more empathy, more people coming together, and animal seems like a great unifying force.
Yeah, well, definitely. Thanks for having me on, and Goochland Pet Lovers thanks you, and I, just as a shameless plug, I'd love to say that our volunteers are the best. I mean, the folks we have out here working with us, just unsung heroes, people that, volunteer 2 days a week to clean up trash at the shelter and help the animals, and also take the time to be involved with us. There's a lot of good that goes on in the world. I think we need to hear more about it.
You're right. We absolutely do, because it's easy to watch negativity on the news, right? And
Right.
there's so
Yeah.
much positivity, and what you guys are doing is amazing. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, and good luck with everything.
Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Accelerating Education is sponsored by Let's Go Learn, maker of K-12 precision diagnostic assessment and instruction software. Thanks for listening, and be sure to check out our next episode of Accelerating Education.